This video is going to be about prepping for societal collapse and or martial law as a target of organized stalking. Now we know that there are a lot of preppers out there, and they're probably more prepared for a situation like we're in now with the nationwide lockdown than most average citizens are. So they're in good shape right now. But this video is going to be geared toward prepping if you're a target of organized stalking, because it becomes much more complicated when we add that extra variable. So, I'm also going to give a list of items that everyone should probably have. But before we get into that, let me just say a few things. So I'm just going to read what I wrote. Many Christians speak of a time of great persecution, where anyone who refuses to take the mark of the beast or worship his image will be hunted, killed, or at the very least, run out of society. Now, there have been a lot of arguments as to what the mark is and what does it mean to worship the beast's image. I'm not going to get into that here because that's not what this video is about. But I just wanted to say that I can see how someone who, anyone who follows the word of Christ might be persecuted. And when I say the word of Christ, I'm not talking about dogma. I'm not even talking about religion. His word is the golden rule. Okay? Treat others the way you would want to be treated. Don't do unto others what you will not have others do unto you. It's that simple, right? Everything else is based on that. And the Bible does say that Jesus was the Word made flesh. So he is his word, and his word is him. Those who love his word love him. Those who hate his word hate him. There are many people in the world today who do love his word, and therefore they love him, but they don't even know it, right? There are wonderful people in this world who do try to live by what he said, and they don't even realize that this is what he said. They're following him. And vice versa. There are people who claim to love him but really hate him because, they hate his word. If they loved his word, they wouldn't commit atrocities in his name, and they wouldn't do such horrible things to other human beings in his name, right? But anyway, it is true that people who do follow the word of Christ tend to be hated, whether or not they call themselves Christian. They are merciful. They seek to heal the sick, feed the hungry, clothe those who need clothes, tend to the poor, and so on. They're kind-hearted nature. Some, whether or not they call themselves Christian, some do and some don't, is what pisses off the psychopathic sadists among us. And there are plenty of them who love the word. There are plenty of people in this world who love the word, and they don't even realize that at some point, the hatred that they're receiving, the hatred that is coming their way is biblical persecution, right? They don't know it. Why? Because we have so many people committing atrocities in his name, and then, as soon as his anger is directed at them for the harm they're causing, they claim to be persecuted. No, people who truly follow Jesus will be persecuted. Everything he said is true. But, the question is, who is that, and who is it, and who is it not? Anyway, here's the thing. There are more people, though, in this world who stand to be persecuted in the final end times system. Patriots, right? Whistleblowers, those who love freedom and are smart enough to understand that chains aren't always physical, those who defend our democracy and our Constitution also stand to be hit hard by the system that seeks to stomp out our Constitution, tear down our nation, crush our democracy, and rip from us every last freedom we've ever had. Here's the point. Anyone who has a legitimate reason to fear possible persecution in the future, Christian or even non-Christian, okay, all you need to do is look at what targets of organized stalking are going through today in order to understand how such a thing will work, though on a much grander scale. Christians understand from the Bible that they won't be able to buy or sell. What many don't realize at the moment is just how severe a punishment that is in a society where we can't access the necessities of life without being able to purchase them. What happens when you can't buy food, clothing, pay for rent, right, in an apartment or a house, or pay for medical care? What happens when you don't have access to the necessities of life and can't even pay for a ride on public transportation? And forget your own car, you can't buy one, and even if somehow you managed to get one legally, you can't pay for car insurance or fuel to run the car. And when I say you might not be able to pay for it, it could be just that a monetary system is going to be created where if you don't buy into that monetary system, whether it's a chip, there are a lot of theories, and I'm not going to go into that. It could be that, and if you don't do that, well, you can't buy. If cash becomes obsolete, right? And that might be what's happening now, right? This whole, well, we'll get into that later. Or it might not even be that. There are people who, once you're run out of society, if you're slandered enough, if you're demonized enough, people will run you out of society. They're just not going to let you go into their stores. They're not going to help you, right? Even with the government, a lot of mistakes are made by government workers, and a lot of them are also very easy to clear up. But if someone won't cooperate with you and clear it up, that mistake is going to remain, and it could be devastating to your life. And this has happened to me in the past, and I will get to that in another video. This is why, even though I am a humanitarian, I want everybody, every human being, to have the necessities of life. That means, clean water, healthy food, safe shelter, medical care, a place to live. I want that for everybody, but I'm very, very leery of having the government provide these things, because the government, they tend to screw up a lot. And if you're in a situation where you're being targeted, no one's going to help you. Even if the solution is a click of a button, if they, you can go into a government agency and they can clear it up within minutes, they're not going to do it. They're going to give you a hard time, and it's going to lead to years of struggle, which is something that has happened to me. But I'll talk about that in another video. The point is this. If you're in a group, that is likely to be targeted for persecution in the future, whether you're Christian and by Christian, I mean an actual follower of the word of Christ, or you're a patriot, a constitutionalist, if you're a whistleblower, you need to start considering these things now, okay? You need to prepare for life on the fringes of society where you can't expect help from another human being. If you're a target, a massive smear campaign will be waged against you, and you will be slandered right out of society. Everyone will be warned about you before you get there, or soon after. Some will treat you with hostility, and all will mistrust you. They will intentionally give you a hard time. Some might even try to cause you harm. If you have a simple question, such as where's the, whatever, they won't tell you, even if they know. Some might even give you the wrong information. This is why it's important to know your surroundings so that you don't have to ask anyone for anything, ever. And I will be right back. I have to cut this video short for a second, but I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I had to stop and restart. Right. So most people are so completely dependent on modern conveniences, such as being able to go to the grocery store and buy what they need as soon as they need it, that they would be unable to function and survive if society were to break down and those conveniences were taken away. Targets of organized stalking already know what it's like to be run out of society by liars and slanderers, so that we can't even enter certain stores or businesses without either being treated badly and having to worry about someone tampering with what we purchase if they know what we're going to get ahead of time, and they usually do, or not being able to enter a store at all, or just being quickly run out as soon as we enter. And that happened to me a few times. And once in particular, I went to a store and I asked a woman a question. She worked there, and she was so hostile and so she was very nasty, and she just pretty much ran me out. And I was thinking, what did I do? And I didn't do anything, but I did notice that there were a few Eastern European looking guys sitting around, and she was looking to them for direction. So there you go. This is what happens. Many people today, aside from targets of organized stalking, and I think some other groups too, maybe people who were severely bullied, or people from some other target group, right? Most people today have no clue just how volatile herds of angry mobs can be toward whoever they've been conditioned to hate. It is best that you take a look now at just how bad this can get, so that you are at least somewhat prepared when your time comes. Some people listening to this now might have even gone along with vigilante mobs against someone they don't even know. Those who have been manipulated into such a thing, into alienating and even attacking someone they barely know, or in some cases don't know, must now put themselves in that person's place, because one day they really might be in that person's place. It goes back to the golden rule. And here's the thing, it's so simple. It's so simple. Before you do anything to someone or say anything to someone, Put yourself in that person's place and say, if I were that person, try to empathize with them. If I were that person, would I want this said or done to me? What would this do to me? What are the possible consequences? It's really pretty simple. Anyway, if you're one of those people who went along with such a thing, I want you to think about this, all right? What did you do to the target in question? Were you intentionally hostile to him? Did you run her out of your business because you heard something bad about her? Did you intentionally give him the wrong information so that harm might come to him later? Or was there an issue that you could have fixed for him and you were in you were in a position of power where you could have fixed it, but you refused to do it? Did you deny her the right to purchase something she needed, either by lying that you didn't have it or by kicking her out of the store or running her out of the store? Did you refuse to allow him to rent a room in your building or motel? Did you refuse her medical care? Did you gossip about this person and warn others about him or her, so that they too might might also treat this person in the same manner, thus ensuring that he or she won't be able to go anywhere or do anything in society, not even gain access to services and necessities of life? And most of all, did you ever give this person a chance to tell his or her side? Have you even heard the target's side of the story, or did you refuse him or her the right to a defense and simply act on what you heard? If the only thing you ever hear is the side of the accusers, you don't have the full story. And you'll never have the full truth if that's what you do, right? So if you did any of these things, you might have unwittingly been used by whoever is running the organized stalking program. Or you might just have behaved in a manner that, in the end, helps these psychopaths run out of society anyone they see as a threat to their New World Order police state. Herd mentality, or the tendency of a large pack to gather together against a common and oftentimes created enemy, is the only reason that the monsters running this program can get away with it. They have the help of the masses. Take a closer look at the one among you who has been cast down, cast out, swarmed, mobbed, spied on, gossiped about by so many. Do you know for a fact that the gossip is true? Has this person actually harmed anyone? If he or she seems angry, is his anger proof, or hers, is his anger her proof that the gossip about him is true? Or is it due to the poor treatment he is receiving from others? Meaning, does the anger he's showing serve as proof that the rumors about him are true, or could it be that he's reacting to hostility, in responding to hostility with hostility? Okay? Could his negative response simply be a self-fulfilled expectation on the part of the masses who were set against him? What do you think this person's life is like? Because this is the fate of the freethinkers, the patriots, the constitutionalists, whistleblowers, and humanitarians, and of course, Christians, people who actually follow Christ. And when I say Christian, I mean someone who actually follows the word of Christ. A lot of people call themselves Christian, and they don't. Okay, I mean people who actually follow his word, or at least try to. No one's perfect. No one's perfect, but they at least try to. Okay, this is their fate, and worse. Research COINTELPRO and understand just how the FBI tried to destroy the lives of civil rights activists. Research MKUltra and understand just how many people were manipulated into going along with these sick, perverse, and illegal experiments conducted on men, women, and children by the CIA. Research Zersetzung, Zersetzung, and learn about the psychological warfare used by the Stasi, or the Stasi, against anti-communists back in East Germany. Now understand that what we nowadays call organized stalking is a combination of these things. It is total destruction on every level, and as a target begins to break down, the masses who have been conditioned to think negatively about him or her will see this breakdown in his behavior, his eventual decline in behavior and in mental function and everything else, as evidence that the rumors are true, because they don't understand what a self-fulfilled expectation is. All that said, you must prepare for a time when you won't be able to access anything that must be purchased from another or help from anyone else. or if you managed to purchase something, it might have been tampered with before you got there. You will not be able to count on anyone else for help, not even to answer a simple question. And in some cases, you will not be able to go anywhere near society, as the masses have been turned into civilian snitches and spies, quickly reporting whoever or whatever they were conditioned to look out for. You must be as self-sufficient as possible, and everything you need to survive must be carried with you. Preppers have the right idea, and if they don't end up in a target group, they should be fine. But those who end up in a target group can expect to have their supplies tampered with. Also, they might not be able to stay in one location indefinitely. They must be prepared to leave at a moment's notice, to flee on foot, travel quickly and quietly, and to expect zero help from others, even from people who used to be friendly. You end up in a target group and you can watch those friendly faces turn hostile. And you'll never know what they were told. You'll never know, because they will never tell you. And you're always going to wonder who in the hell is controlling them. Who or what. To the preppers. Keep prepping. It's always good to be prepared for an emergency, but stay off the radar for as long as possible. You want to at least be able to get the basic necessities without having such things tampered with. It's much more difficult to get and to keep safe the supplies you need once you have attracted the attention of the wrong people, be it criminal thieves or crooked law enforcement officials who have been taught and are being paid to seek out and destroy free-thinking, freedom-loving, survivalist-inclined citizens. And I'm not just talking to Americans here. This is going on all over the world. So the same thing applies to people all over the world who are going through this. Preppers who are still off the radar should do as they've been doing. And people who want to begin prepping and are still off the radar should do the same. Stock up on the supplies you need. And also prepare for both having electricity as well as for a time when electricity might be cut off. But try to get your items over time, as opposed to stocking up all at once. This is for two reasons. One, with everyone hoarding right now due to COVID-19, you don't want to add to a shortage of supplies for other people. And two, remember, well, first of all, and also for that, I mean, that goes for basic supplies like, food and medical supplies, first aid and hand sanitizer and things like that. Okay. And two, remember, you want to stay off the radar. If you're buying a bunch of survivalist gear all at once, right, including items that can be used as weapons, such as knives, you will eventually attract the wrong attention. All that said, here is where it would serve you well to listen to the advice from those who are already being hunted. Once you attract the wrong attention, understand that anything you purchase online can be tampered with before it gets to you, be it food, electronics, or other. Also, your stored supplies can be tampered with when no one is home. Further, a time might come when you have to flee. You might have a vehicle, but that can also be sabotaged. Someone might tamper with your engine, your brakes, or eventually find a way to manipulate the law to take your vehicle. Consider, if at some point you are unable to buy and sell, how will you purchase fuel to even run your vehicle? How will you pay for car insurance to keep the car legal? And if you're trying to escape the wrong element, they'll certainly put a tracker on the vehicle. They'll put a GPS tracker or whatever they use. And by doing so, they'll render it useless for fleeing persecution, because they'll know everywhere you go. While it is a good idea to have a car or a vehicle of some sort to travel in, because obviously you can get farther away from society that way and you can take more supplies with you, you must also prepare for a time when you might no longer have access to a car. I'm not telling you to stop what you're doing. What I am saying is that you should take one more step. Stock up on what you need. Have a vehicle if you can, but also prepare a backpack of supplies that you can simply pick up and carry with you on a moment's notice. Everything you need to survive should be included in that backpack. For this purpose, your pack should be a scaled-down version of your prepping supplies at home. And for those of you who aren't preppers, this applies to you as well. All who might be persecuted in the future should have the proper supplies to enable them to live off-grid in the wilderness for extended periods of time. I know right now that it might be hard to get out and acquire some of these items and to acquire some of these items. And I'm not suggesting that you go out right now and risk your life or the lives of others. But when things calm down and the virus passes, hopefully it will pass soon or all, right? And when society reopens, hopefully it will, that would be a good time to start looking for these items, which should be considered basic necessities. And we'll get to the items a bit in a little bit. This is just going to be a basic list and does not include everything that every single person might need. Since everyone has different needs, including medical, different people will need to add or retract different items for their own survival and or the survival of others in their group. These differences include location and climate. Obviously, if you're in a desert, you don't need crampons for mountain climbing in icy conditions as you would if you were planning on hiding out in the Alps. Though keep in mind, just because you are in one location or choose to travel to and hide out in a specific environment, that doesn't mean you will be staying there. Be ready for plans and weather to change. Do try to prepare for different weather conditions. It can get cold in the desert and hot in the mountains. Also, you might plan to take shelter. Hang on. I'm sorry. Also, you might have to travel to a different location with a very different environment. Know your location and the area you plan to take shelter in. Study and gear up for that environment in so much as you possibly can. But take extra care in case you end up in a different environment. Planning ahead is imperative. Yet for those who are already being targeted, the perpetrators will know where you're going, especially if you're heavily targeted and all of your online activity is being monitored, as well as your in-person purchases and inquiries. If you have to ditch the perpetrators at some point, you will have to travel fast and head somewhere they would not expect you to go. Any place you've looked up online will be swarming with perpetrators waiting for you. This is why, although you do need to travel light, you must prepare for different climates and environments. Another thing, if you're going to order maps, order them from different locations in America and around the world. For numerous state parks, wilderness preserves, mountain ranges, so that if you can ditch the perpetrators, they won't know where you're actually headed. Obviously, if you only order a map from one area or research one location, that is exactly where they'll expect you to go. Though I guess you can do that in order to throw them off, though I don't know how well that will work, depending on how heavily targeted you are. Anyway, here we go. Number 1, you're going to need a good quality backpack to hold everything in. This is going to have to last as long as possible, assuming you won't be able to get a hold of another one. And so unfortunately, you'll have to choose between weight and quality. While the pack needs to be light enough to carry over long distances, the extremely lightweight packs are less durable than the heavier ripstop packs. Use your own judgment when making this choice. Each member of your family or group should also have a pack of necessities and it should be scaled up or down to fit their size and ability to carry weight. Don't assume that you're always going to be able to carry everything for everyone. What happens if something happens to you, okay? They need to be able to survive if you're not there. And just on a side note, for those listening to this who have experience with backpacks, especially through hikers who have long distance on foot experience, if you can, please post some more reviews online. Since I don't have experience in that matter, I'm not a hiker and I've never traveled long distances on foot, I can't review any backpacks or any of these items. And really, any tips regarding gear and items for long distance on foot travel would be appreciated. But just remember, you're not talking to experienced hikers now, but instead to people fleeing who will be fleeing disaster and persecution. They won't be able to send themselves items ahead of time, stop at community rest stops or towns along the way, or ask anyone for help. Okay, so the other basic necessities. Fire starters. You'll need fire for at least 2 purposes. At least 2. Okay? For decontaminating water and also for warmth in cold weather. You can bring matches, lighters, flint and steel, and even a magnifying glass. Make sure you know how to use whatever you bring. Something to heat water and cook food in. This can be a small camping pot or a metal thermos. Also have at least 1 metal spoon or fork for both cooking and eating. Something to filter small particles and dirt out of water before it enters your pot. This can be as simple as a bandana. In fact, I would suggest having 1 or 2 bandanas in your inventory, as they have many functions, including as a makeshift bandage if nothing else is available. And two, if you have, let's say you have a metal thermos and a cooking pot, you can fill the thermos up with water and then put the bandana over the top and dump the water into the pot. And of course, while that doesn't kill viruses, you still have to cook the water and heat it and boil it, but it will filter out the particles, okay, the physical particles. Next, bring basic medical supplies. Have a medical kit with band-aids, antiseptic to clean wounds, antibiotic ointment, pain medication, and whatever you need for your own personal health issues, if at all possible, right? Try to, if you can, try to stock up on what you need for your own health needs too, for your individual health needs. Duct tape. This is important for quick, easy repairs to rips and holes in your bag, in your tent, and whatever else. It can also be placed directly on your feet to prevent blisters. A knife. Have at least one good quality knife for cutting through small objects, and possibly a larger knife too for if you have to cut through larger objects. And you should be prepared. You're not going to know what you're going to need in the wilderness. I mean, you don't want to go out there without 1 or 2 knives, different sizes preferably. Also know how to use this for purposes of self-defense, especially if you are unable to get a hold of other, more reliable items for self-defense. A flashlight and batteries, or a crank flashlight, or one that can be charged if you plan to bring a small solar panel. Rope. This can be used for many purposes, including setting up makeshift shelter if you have tarp, right? Or garbage bags even, right? And hanging up clothing to dry, or for hanging food and gear above ground and out of reach of rodents and other animals. Tarp. This cheap item, which can be purchased almost anywhere, can also be used for many purposes, including shelter and water collection. Garbage bags can be used in the place of tarp in some cases. For that reason, have a few heavy-duty garbage bags, or even whatever you can get at the dollar store, the Dollar Tree, whatever you have near you. They're better than nothing, right? And they have numerous functions. They can be used as a rain poncho, a tarp for shelter, or to gather water from a natural source or rainwater. One thing though, don't assume that rainwater is necessarily clean, right? You should boil it if you can. You don't have to, but if you can, do. But if you can't boil any water at all, if you don't have, if that's not possible at the moment, rainwater will be safer than anything you can get from the ground, from a natural source on the ground. Try to collect it for drinking whenever possible. Of course, unless you have access to a pump or something, a clean water pump where you can get clean water. But if you're gonna, if your only source of water is from like a natural spring or pond or something, you're absolutely gonna have to boil that. Rainwater would still be a lot safer if you can collect that. If you can get a life straw or other devices to filter and or sanitize water so that you can drink right from a natural source, by all means do so. If not, make sure you have something to boil water in, a bandana to filter out particles before the water enters your pot, and fire to heat it, of course. All right. Emergency survival blankets plus emergency shelter, an emergency reflective tent. That's important. These items are extremely compact, can be carried anywhere, and are relatively cheap, from a few dollars each up to maybe around $20. Some higher quality emergency tents cost more, though most are under $10. Walmart usually has these in stock. Of course, it's a good idea to have a real tent and sleeping bag, and you can get a small, light one-person tent for pretty cheap. But that's not always possible to carry with you if you need to travel quick, extra light, and with as little bulk as possible. Carry the emergency blanket and shelter with you even if you do have a real tent and sleeping bag. You never know what might happen or whether you will have to lighten your load for quicker travel. Keep in mind, the emergency reflective tents will need rope tied to something on each end in order to stay up. Clothing. Have at least one quality rain suit. These can be purchased at Walmart and other stores for under $15, though the prices go up depending on the brand. For cheaper items, the dollar store or the Dollar Tree, they have rain ponchos, and while they're not as durable, they're better than nothing. If possible, try to buy a few items of clothing made from quick-drying material. Do research online to find the cheapest. Cotton, while comfortable, absorbs water and takes a long time. Cotton absorbs a lot of water and it takes a long time to dry, increasing the risk of hypothermia. But again, find a way to make do with what you can get, and if you can't purchase clothing, then make do with what you have. If all you have are jeans and cotton shirts, then it becomes even more important to have a full rain suit in order to keep your clothing as dry as possible. Or at least have a few cheap rain ponchos, or even some garbage bags, if that's all, if all you can get. Though this won't help with water produced when you sweat. You'd be surprised how quickly a person can succumb to hypothermia from wet or even damp clothes when the temperature goes down. So, if you consider if it's hot during the day and you work up a sweat, and then the temperature goes down at night, well, that wet clothing, that can cause problems. While keeping clothing clean from serious contamination, such as dangerous chemicals and viruses, is important in the long run, dry clothing is mandatory for immediate survival. Though do try to keep as clean as possible to prevent the spread of disease. Hand sanitizer is a great way to remain safe if you don't have access to proper bathing facilities. Although right now hand sanitizer is hard to get. In fact, we have some left, but unfortunately, this is our last container. And no one else around here has it, so that's worrisome. Hopefully when the pandemic goes away, if it goes away, hopefully it'll go away, and in society we start getting back to normal, these supplies will be in stock again. Okay, also warm clothing is important. If you live in a warm climate, even if you live in a warm climate, take one pair of thermal undergarments or something warm to cover your whole body. A hat and gloves too, even if you think you'll never use them. With our climate in upheaval, you never know what bizarre weather conditions you might experience. It could snow in Florida while there's a heat wave in Alaska. Plus, remember, you might end up in a location that you never expected to travel to. Bring at least one pair of clothing to prepare for any climate, cold, hot, wet, etc. If something has multiple uses, even better, like those cargo pants that can also be turned into shorts, or a 3-in-1 jacket with layers that can be removed or added. Remember, you want to prepare for as much as possible, but you still need to travel as light as possible. If something has multiple uses, bring that instead of using multiple items. But again, use what you have. Find a way to make it work. If you can't get a hold of a 3-in-1 jacket, putting a rain jacket over a warm coat or over layers, even when it isn't raining, will keep the wind out. And by doing that, it'll keep you warmer. And also, obviously, have light clothing as well, for sunscreen. For hot weather, and have sunscreen too. You never know what conditions you're going to find, so be prepared. Okay, proper shoes are extremely important. Because you will be doing a lot of walking, hiking, trekking, and probably running, possibly in poor conditions, having a good pair of shoes is imperative. Have a good quality pair of hiking boots, sturdy, durable, waterproof, and make sure they fit well. Remember, you might not be able to get another pair, so these have to last. Skimping in other areas is possible without causing too much trouble, but not in this case. If you have to spend a little more on any item, a good quality pair of shoes would be at the top of the list. As for food, this will vary from person to person as everyone has different likes and dislikes and allergies and so on. I am only giving the basics here, so do try to tailor this to your own needs. Acquiring food will be more difficult in a shit hits the fan situation if you end up having to flee on foot and can only take with you what you can carry. So make sure you can take enough to last as long as possible. You must take as much food as you can carry, and so the food you take must also be light and compact. Nutrition bars are great, but you can't fill up your pack with enough to last for very long. Take a few if you can, but try to get compact food that will last for longer, such as rice and oatmeal. And those little oatmeal packs too are really great. They're really compact and they don't take up a lot of room and they're light. So fill a large Ziploc bag with rice. This will keep the rice fresh for longer. Plus, a large Ziploc bag can hold a few bags of rice in it, and so you'll save room by pouring it all into one bag instead of carrying a few lumpy bags with you. Just make sure you use white rice and not brown rice, right? Because brown rice has a lot of oils, and because of that, it'll go rancid quicker. As for oatmeal, the individual bags of instant oatmeal don't take up a lot of room, are lightweight, and relatively nutritious. You can also get oats that you have to, that take longer to cook, and just put it in a Ziploc bag if that's what you want. Same with cream of wheat. Nuts and seeds are also a great option. They're nutritious, high calorie, and don't take up a lot of space. Dried fruit is also a good choice. Also, try to bring a bag of salt or pour it in a Ziploc bag, and do the same with whatever seasonings you want to bring, with whatever you like. The easiest foods to carry with you that will last the longest obviously are dried and bulk up when cooked. They puff up, right? But you also have to prepare for a time when you might not be able to cook food. And this is the problem. This is why I say take nuts and seeds and things like that. Maybe they're just, you might come to a point where there just isn't enough water, and you have to conserve what little you have. Or you might lose your camping pot, or it might get damaged. You never know what might happen. 2, if you're hiding, making a fire at night is a bad idea and probably shouldn't be done unless it's so cold that you're sure to get hypothermia if you don't. Because, the last thing you want to do is attract attention. You don't want to send someone a smoke signal, and that's easier to see at night. So, anyway, remember, this is for basic survival in an absolute emergency situation where you have to flee on foot. Obviously, this won't be fun, and of course, this isn't even a complete list. You're going to have to add to this and subtract from it, give and take what you need for your own needs and the needs of your family and your colleagues or whoever you're taking with you, your group. Either way, this is not going to be fun. If you do have the means to take a few comfort items with you, do it, because it will increase morale. You have to have some release, some pleasure, right? Just remember, survival must be your first priority. But okay, I'm gonna stop this video because I don't want it to get too long, and it's already getting pretty long. Just let me finish with a few points here. I have no doubt that the current situation we're all living through with COVID-19 and the nationwide lockdown that has resulted is deadly serious. This is a dangerous virus, and extreme measures are necessary to stop its spread and prevent more deaths. But it is also clear that this can be used by those with wicked intent to implement certain governmental policies that cancel out the Constitution. And worse. Martial law is the suspension of ordinary law under which the military is placed in control of the population. We know that right now ordinary law is already being suspended. Now, before anyone gets angry with me and starts shouting, understand I'm not condemning the lawmakers who are trying to protect us. And I say some lawmakers actually have good intent and they are trying to protect us. I'm not condemning them. Obviously, others will have wicked intent and will certainly try to misuse this situation. Obviously we're in the middle of a crisis, and sometimes, sometimes plans have to be changed, sometimes the laws have to be changed in order to, to prevent worse consequences later. I understand that. But some of our lawmakers are suggesting military intervention in populated areas. Now, right now, they're only saying, that they want to send the military in to help, maybe with medical, maybe with something else. Okay. But how long before they then start suggesting that the military be used to apprehend citizens who are outside? Right. For example, I'm in Chicago, and we just got an emergency alert that says we're no longer allowed to go to the beachfront. Which, okay, fine, I understand that. But, how long before people are arrested for things like this? While they claim that martial law is not coming, if our normal laws are suspended and we are placed under military occupation, that is martial law, whether or not they call it such. Again, I commend the hard-working men and women who have the difficult task of governing society during a crisis. And I do not condemn them for the measures they take while trying to save lives, and some of them actually are trying to save lives, and God bless them. But the measures that a lot of them are putting in place can be abused horribly, and I think you all know that. This crisis can be used as an excuse to limit our freedom, place us under military occupation, and even call off elections. And if the people who are implementing these policies now, even if they have good intent, they need to consider what will happen if someone else takes over who might have wicked intent, right? What can they do? What can they do with these new laws, with these new decrees, right? This can be used to bring in the New World Order as we cheer it on. Keep that in mind. Also consider, and this is the final point I'm going to make, consider the psychopaths who are running the modern day Zerzetzung program, or the organized stalkers, okay? They are using and wasting money and resources by hunting, stalking, and terrorizing innocent men, women, and children, when those resources could go to stopping a real threat, human or viral. Any agency or organization that continues to play this sick, murderous game, especially during a pandemic, they should never again be allowed to be given power over the American citizens. And all of the taxpayer money that was wasted must be given back to the taxpayers. Also, the idiots they use as perpetrators must be held criminally accountable for literally risking people's lives during a pandemic. Yeah, they're still out there doing what they do. I didn't think they would stop. And you know what? I don't think they're going to be held accountable either. I'm just saying this because I still have some hope. If I didn't, I wouldn't be making these videos. What would be the point, right? Anyway, I don't want to end this on a depressing, negative note. So just be careful, be safe, and be smart. God bless you. God bless America.